Leaving Brisbane on a beautiful Easter Saturday morning, we flew down the Queensland coast for a farewell glimpse of home before crossing the Tasman to Auckland. About 17 hours later, we arrived in Santiago, Chile, at lunchtime the same day, thanks to the international dateline. An overnight stop enabled us to draw breath before our eagerly anticipated departure early next morning for Lima and Iquitos, the starting point for our Amazon adventure. We were excited to see the first glimpses of the Amazon, but sobered to learn on landing that crashes do occur due to the weather. Motor taxis appear to be the preferred transport option for the majority of Iquitos' 400,000 population. The city is the largest in the rainforest of Peru and can be reached only by air or by riverboat. The town, originally an Indian settlement, was established as a Jesuit mission around 1735, but in January 1864 it was selected to be the deepwater port in the Peruvian Amazon during the early days of the rubber boom from 1880 to 1912. The boom ended when rubber seeds were smuggled out for propagation in England's Kew Gardens, and the industry was later established in Southeast Asia. Now located on the Ataya River, the Amazon changed course in the late 1990s and is now about a mile away. Iquitos is just 106 metres above sea level and 3,360 kilometres from the mouth of the Amazon on the Atlantic Ocean.
These people here in Belem likes to live this way. More or less 4,000 people living here, only in the floating area.
Yeah.
Now I'm keeping the pig there in that cage.
Yeah.
On the right hand side.
Yeah.
Both sides of the river get completely dry, but the river goes down, and you can see a difference of that's 42 feet approximately from the high level water that we're now to the low level of the water, and that occurs in July, August, September.
That's your dry
That's the dry season.
School bus,
It may be.
They cannot hear me.
Yeah.
They turn that radio on.
Community
By
station.
loudspeakers.
Yeah.
You have to hear even if you don't want to. Yeah, artificial. That's artificial. And that's, I guess, why. I never seen one that was. I never went artificial.
There are still great mansions from the 1800s, including the Iron House designed by Gustav Eiffel of Eiffel Tower fame.
Do you have any idea what that is?
These fascinating daily markets are also in the Belem district, in a part that doesn't flood. Everything imaginable is available here: meat, fish, fruit and vegetables, clothing, herbal remedies and voodoo items. The catchment area of the Amazon is huge, its tributaries flowing from 9 surrounding countries. The basin receives an annual rainfall of 1,500 to 2,000 millimetres, estimated at 16,300 cubic kilometres of water. 9,600 cubic kilometres of water evaporates, 2,400 cubic kilometres are held as atmospheric water vapour, and 6,700 cubic kilometres are discharged by the river. There is still some question as to whether the Nile at 6,650 kilometres or the Amazon between 6,400 and 6,800 kilometres is the world's longest, but the Amazon has the world's greatest discharge of water, 10 times that of the Mississippi. The furthest headwaters are about 4,000 metres in the upper Ucayali Valley of Peru near Cusco, approximately 6,500 kilometres from the Atlantic. The average flood height is about 10 metres, and between May and July fresh water can be found 160 kilometres into the Atlantic. We and our fellow travellers on the little red ship slip quickly into our new riparian lifestyle.
Just so that you don't have people who really know what they're doing, and people who just are learning and
Néstor Castro. Teniente de Portugal, Néstor Castro.
Our first afternoon zodiac explorations are at the confluence of the Amazon and Napo rivers, an area known as Portugal. As was to follow over the succeeding days, we split into interest groups for bird watching, fishing, photography and general exploration.
¿Dónde cogiste?
After an early coffee in the lounge, we disembark at 6 a.m. to explore the Quebrada Pishana tributary before breakfast. A visit to the adjoining villages of the Bora and Witoto Indians is a 20-minute Zodiac ride up the Ampiaco River.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice to have you in this communal house. This house is called Maloca. Maloca, it's a very important place in every Indian village because this is where they celebrate their fiestas, their meetings. When they are going to do any communal work, they join here. The chief joins everyone, and this is where they discuss what to do. If someone gets married, this is where they celebrate their big fiesta. Okay?
Look, guys. Oh, beautiful. Look at it. Oh.
Close by is the township of Pevas, where an eccentric Peruvian artist, Francisco Grippa, has built this extraordinary combination of home and gallery, its rickety tower affording bird's-eye views over the surrounding area. Early this morning, Explorer anchors off Letitia, and after clearance by Colombian authorities, we go ashore to explore this interesting border town. Letitia is a small city of approximately 37,000 inhabitants on the northern bank of the Amazon, at the point where Colombia, Peru and Brazil come together. Agriculture and tourism are its main sources of income, although in the late 60s and 70s, illegal drug trafficking became a new way to make money in the region. Together with its neighbouring Brazilian town of Tabatinga, the urban area spreading along the Amazon has a population of over 100,000 people. Another early morning, and with cameras fogged in the high humidity, we explore the Paraná das Panelas. Rain threatens as we leave the Solimões River and enter the Blackwater tributary, the Rio Jutaí, our first close encounter with the Iguassu, or flooded forest. We're rewarded with liquid sunshine aplenty. This is the equatorial rainforest, and in spite of the wet weather gear, we emerge from the dripping forest some hours later like drowned rats. We learned something in this morning's lecture of the culture of the caboclos, or mixed-race Indians. The name means literally coffee-coloured.
Diga como vai o rapaz, tá melhor? Um pouco? Ah, que bom. Que bom mesmo. Oh, he knows what it was.
Before lunch, many take the opportunity of a dip in Lago Uará, a beautiful black water lake, while we enjoy John's impromptu performance from our Zodiac.
Sailing ship, and when I reached Jamaica, I made a stop, but I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I like to leave alone.
This afternoon we embark on a hike through the rainforest.
One's got more with the red on it.
Where's the tree from? Oh, where's the tree from? Oh, you got. Where's the tree from? Oh, you.
we drop anchor off the village of São Francisco de Boca de Capivara, known by the villagers as Kushu Muni. "23 families live here, supporting themselves basically by fishing, although they produce manioc flour and corn, beans, bananas, papayas and cocoa. Electricity is provided by a diesel generator, and the village has a community house, school, church and a soccer field. Here at the mouth of the Rio Badajoz, we watch the famous pink dolphins. Found only in the Amazon and Orinoco rivers and their tributaries, they surface unpredictably for only a second or so at a time to breathe. They are almost blind but have highly evolved sonar systems and grow to between 1.8 and 2.5 meters long.
Okay, keep an eye in the brain. Being this way, the flower will attract beetles, and on the other side of the picture you see the beetles. And the beetles will be bringing pollen into the flower. The flower is female, will be pollinated. The second night...
At Boca de Anamar, we see the world's largest water lilies, the huge Victoria regia variety, whose white flowers are pollinated by scarab beetles.
Actually, this is the nicest one I've ever seen.
Further upriver, we see the harvesting of malva or jute. It produces a fibre that's peeled from the previously soaked stems of the plant and sun-dried on wooden frames. The bundles of fibre are used in the production of sacks and ropes, with Anamar shipping over 400 tonnes of malva to Manaus every year.
We can see satellite dishes everywhere.
We stop at the local fish co-op to inspect the catch and to visit the family. Here, manioc or tapioca is processed. After being soaked for 4 days, the tubers are turned to paste using a machine grinder. The juice is squeezed out, and the resulting flakes are then toasted and dried in a giant iron pan heated over a wood-fired stove. These starch-rich manioc tubers are the staple diet of the Amazonian population. At the meeting of the waters, the Encontro das Aguas, the white water of the Rio Solimões meets the black water of the Rio Negro, but owing to differences in speed, density and temperature, the waters don't immediately mix, but flow side by side for several kilometres. We steamed 10 kilometres north up the Rio Negro from the confluence to dock later in the afternoon at Manaus. 1900 kilometres from our starting point at Iquitos in Peru, this city of over 1.5 million, an international port, is still some 1500 kilometres from the Atlantic and reachable only by air or by the river. This floating dock was designed by the British and inaugurated in 1902. It rises and falls with the seasonal water levels. Founded by the Portuguese in 1669 as a fort, in 1856 it was renamed Manaus after a local tribe of Indians. Until the rubber boom between the 1880s and early 1900s, the town was only a minor trading post, but the rubber generated great wealth. Manaus became the second city in Brazil after Rio de Janeiro to get electricity. The imposing cast-iron city market buildings, the Mercado Municipal Adolfo Lisboa, opened in 1882, are a copy of Paris's famed Les Halles markets. Its Art Nouveau ironwork was imported from Europe. This is the Palacio Rio Negro, built in the early 20th century for an eccentric German rubber baron, Waldemar Scholz. It was converted into a cultural centre in the 1990s. At the Natural History Museum we see an extensive exhibit of fish, butterflies and bugs from the region, as well as an aquarium containing, amongst other fish, these 2-metre long pirarucu. And an opulent opera house, the Teatro Amazonas, was built in the heart of the jungle. Opened in 1896, it was designed by engineers in Lisbon in eclectic neoclassical style. Italian marble and glass and Scottish cast iron were imported, and even some of the Brazilian timber work was sent to Europe to be carved. The roadway outside the entrance is paved in rubber to silence late arriving carriages. We are fortunate to arrive during the annual opera season and attend a performance of Othello. At 3 degrees south of the equator and only 40 to 80 metres above sea level, Manaus is hot and humid. The area gets over 2 metres of rainfall per annum, and the river level varies from 10 to 14 metres between the high and low water period. Photography is limited by the early morning liquid sunshine over Lago Canassari, an immense wetland filling with the waters of the Amazon. Within the lake there are more sightings of the pink dolphins and many rare bird species. Boca dos Botos is an amazingly wildlife-rich creek, home to many beautiful birds. We are privileged to be given an insight into the daily lives of these friendly people in the small settlements along this creek.
Essa corrente que está aqui, o mestre aqui não é ruim não. Leite pacote. They milk the cattle and they have cattle for meat. Most interesting fishes in the Amazon. It's called Aruanante, local name, and this is the guy that jumps out of the water for insects and gets back. Pula. Cattle travel in a boat. Tropical plants is to offer one flower at a time. So the plant ensures that it will be offering pollen for the hummingbirds that will be in return. The plants, they can count on having pollinators for them.
A nice surprise are encounters with red howler monkeys, a much hunted species difficult to find and harder to photograph, and also the smaller, faster squirrel monkeys.
Tem, deve ser tudo lá com Antônio. Community house, church, and the school. This log.
This morning, Explorer anchors in the Tapajos River near the town of Alto do Chao. The sandspit that normally houses the beach huts and bars for which the town is famous is completely submerged by the high water, leaving only the roofs of the bars still visible. A colony of leafcutter ants is hard at work along the waterfront as we set out to explore this town of 7,000. Parariba is acknowledged as being one of the best indigenous art stores in the Amazon region. Naked Hill is a 400-foot peak, giving a great view to those who choose to climb it. Nearby Lago Verde provides another beautiful destination for zodiac exploration. Rio Corua is spectacular. We take to the boats before sunrise to explore this huge area so rich in wildlife. In luck again, more of the elusive red-handed howler monkeys.
And I believe the dividing line between
We're lucky to avoid another drenching when this storm passes some distance behind the ship. Many water buffalo farms are here in the Boca de Guajara. The animals are herded by dugout when high water prevents the use of horses.
That this is a fern, so it can't possibly have flowers. I talked yesterday with a guy. He said, well, I think it's the highest because we've had the suckermouth catfish, we've had the jarrah fish, and the plants in the floating plants have had their red flowers, so it must be high water.
Cattle are herded to these floating corrals for the night, whilst calves are corralled full time until they're old enough to join the herd grazing during the day.
Wow.
This is an armoured catfish.
species. Large-billed tern is a large one. Yellow-billed tern is a small one.
Tá bom, nossa clientela é muito tímida. Mas... é bom que a gente entre lá.
The farms are run by various members of an extended family, and we stop for a chat and a chance to visit the school.
The behavior. Look at the behavior. They're gonna fly around, look what was the problem, and land from behind. You'll see that. See, they're landing from behind. They're all facing the threat, which is that zodiac in this case.
Carol.
Carol is a threat.
Sure.
For
We watch huge flocks of egrets and cormorants roost as we return to the little red ship, and we see the mountains of Venezuela away to the north across the river. We rise at 5:30 to explore this side channel of the Amazon River Delta named Furo do Murutai-Pina.
We've been pushing the black water here, and now the river's just starting to go down, and we're getting black water again in here.
The day starts early for these people, and we interrupt several families at breakfast. Logging is the main occupation in this area, but fishing for catfish and shrimp, cutting palm hearts and making palm wine are also important to the local economy. The school boat passes.
Hey, don't Joe!
The slashes in the bark of this rubber tree are evidence of frequent harvesting during the time of the rubber boom. Trees were not in plantations but were scattered throughout the forest. The bug boat hunts for the smallest Amazonians.
estou todos voltando para aí. Tá bom. Me mostra uma tapinha enquanto eu estou aqui.
Explorer navigates the narrow channels skirting the western and southern sides of Marajó Island, which connect the mainstream of the Amazon and the waterways near Belem. Few passenger ships pass through this route, so the people come out in their canoes to see us and to surf our wake. The vegetation here is different again from what we've experienced further upriver. It's more like jungle now rather than rainforest, with the low-lying banks flooded twice a day by freshwater tides. We pass a number of small communities and the larger township of Brevis, where most of the sawmills are located. We anchor this afternoon near the exit from the Narrows to explore Furo do Abacate, a beautiful narrow tributary home to many more small communities.
I was asking him because I've been here last year and they were moving to this place. So I'm asking them, how is life going on? He said, we are doing pretty well. They are doing some shrimp fishing.
Today we're aboard the school delivery boat and leave supplies with this family for distribution. Explorer anchors overnight in this large bay to the south of Marajó Island in the Amazon Delta, awaiting favourable tidal conditions to steam to the port of Belem. We exchange pilots for the last time. The city's central area is pleasant, with streets and parks shaded by mango trees. This is the Teatro de Paz, one of Belem's finest buildings, built in the neoclassical style of the rubber boom era between 1869 and 1874. The Goldie Museum and Zoo was founded in 1866 and contains many Amazonian animal species. These pleasant forested botanical gardens are part of a research institution studying flora, fauna and peoples of Amazonia. Founded in 1621, Belem, with a population of 1.4 million, is the economic centre of the Amazon. The rubber boom revitalised its declining economy following initial exploitation of the area's natural products such as cacao, vanilla, indigo, cinnamon, animal skins and turtle shells. A second rubber boom during World War II was followed by a timber boom in the 1970s. Today, some 800,000 tonnes of cargo pass through Belem, mostly timber, but also soy, fish, shrimp, Brazil nuts and palm hearts.
I look pissed.
Yeah, you do, actually.
If something happens, who we need to look for. Okay?
Come, serving lass, and fill my glass, and I'll tell you a tale as I booze, of a mighty fine trip of the little red ship, and the Amazon downstream cruise. It took more than a day to fly the long way from our homes to the port of Iquitos, a place that's so hot that you melt on the spot, also known for large snakes and mosquitoes. We cast off at dawn and sailed all the morn, and from then on we've not seen a dock. The first day we peek into Portugal Creek from 3:30 until 6 o'clock. Early next day we go out to play in Pichana's rich riverine system, see all kinds of birds, or so I've heard, for sometimes I just missed them. There is something for all, as at Beavis we call, and visit 2 Indian nations. We buy tappa and beads in excess of our needs and wonder at Gripper's creations. Then to the next land, which was just close at hand, in Leticia we make a quick visit. We buy emeralds of class, we hope not green glass, and Tio Tom's beer is exquisite. Pinellas, insane, we go out in the rain, which certainly dampens our ardour. Our interest grows thin as we soak to the skin, so the naturalists try a bit harder. Next up, Jutai, we go out to see the wonderful blackwater plants. The place that we go is called Igapo, but we find fewer orchids than ants. We then take a break in Huaraz lovely lake, first swimming, then walks in the wood, where Brazil nuts were found all over the ground, and mosquitoes came after our blood. At Kushumuni, we first go to see the locals, who were a delight. We next go to seek the sloths in the creek, and then catch some caimans at night. The following day, we do Badajoz Bay, where we see lots of giant lily flowers. Their strange procreation by bug pollination is quite as intriguing as ours. Then the town Anama came next on our plan. We saw manioc and jute agriculture, and many nice boats and houses on floats, and birds from the seed finch to vulture. But here, dear friends, for some the trip ends, and hasn't it been fantastic? For though there are bills from various tills, we're paying them all with plastic. So, serving wench, my thirst I'll quench, I'll raise my glass and cheer, for captain and crew, fellow passengers too, and I'll see you all next year. Now that is the story so far. I thought I was going to get off the hook with that one, actually. But I was commissioned at vast expense to do the sequel, which is not as long, but it's in the same style. Well, barmaid, then, I'm back again to talk a bit more as I sip. So give me more ale and I'll pick up the tale of the Amazon downriver trip. We left Manaus dock at PM 6 o'clock and sailed downstream throughout the whole night. Then we went out to see Lago Carasari, though the weather was rainy, not bright. At Boca de Botas we took lots of photos because the small creek was so fine, with howlers and sloths and fishes and moths and some palm trees from which you make wine. No one knows how to say Alta do Chao, but we go there and do what we like. Some swim and some shop, some drink Guaraná pop, and the hill lures yet others to hike. Next stop, Curua, and then Guajara, flooded pastures the scene of each outing. We saw buffalo herds and huge flocks of birds, and around us the dolphins were spouting. Last day in the delta, we soak and we swelter in estuarine Varzea forests, where they live on the mud and survive cutting wood, and have blossoms the envy of florists. But now the trip's through, and what can I do? I've spent my allowance of beers, so before it's too late, let me say it was great, and with my last glass, wish you cheers.
A symbol of Belem, the waterfront Mercado Vera Peso's name comes from colonial times, when the Portuguese would vero peso, or check the weight, of merchandise in order to impose taxes. The four-turreted iron structure inside the market, known as the Mercado de Ferro, was brought over in parts from Britain and constructed here in 1901.
Três tiros canhão. Agora tente para nossos dois integrantes.
The Fort do Castelo was the first building constructed in Belem, strategically located at the confluence of Guajará Bay and Rio Guamá, on a hill commanding a view of the bay. It was once headquarters for the military operations that expelled the English, French and Dutch. Built in 1909, its colourful interior lined with fine European marble, the Basilica de Nossa Senhora de Nazaré contains many beautiful mosaics. It's the centre of Brazil's biggest religious festival, celebrated on the second Sunday of October since 1793. The image of Nossa Senhora de Nazaré is believed by the faithful to have been sculpted in Nazareth and to have performed miracles in medieval Portugal before being lost in Brazil. It was rediscovered in 1700 by a humble cattleman on the site of the basilica, to which it later returned of its own accord after being moved away several times. From Belem, we fly via Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo to Iguassu. Here the borders of Brazil, Argentina and Paraguay come together at the confluence of the Paraná and Iguassu rivers, with the Friendship Bridge across the Rio Paraná linking Brazil and Argentina. Thousands of years before the 1541 discovery of Iguassu Falls by the Spanish, they were a holy burial place for the Tupi-Guarani and Paraguas tribes. The Spanish name, Saltos de Santa Maria, fortunately fell into disuse, and the Tupi-Guarani name of Iguassu, meaning Great Waters, was readopted. The area was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1986. First we explore the Brazilian side of the falls. This 5-hectare bird park, Parque das Aves, is home to 800 different species of birds, There are 8-metre-high walk-through aviaries and also exhibits of native snakes and butterflies. Iguassu rises in the coastal mountains of Paraná and Santa Catarina, 600 kilometres to the east, with dozens of tributaries joining the river along the way. "275 individual falls occupy an area more than 3 kilometres wide and 80 metres high, making them wider than Victoria Falls and higher than Niagara. Above the falls, the river widens majestically, sweeping through magnificent forest before plunging and crashing down the tiered cliffs.
Coisa querida. Ele tá feliz.
Each time we cross the border, we must leave the car to disinfect our shoes, and the car must drive through a disinfectant bath. Argentina has cases of mad cow disease. Argentina, a short boat trip across the river links the lower walk with Isla San Martin. There's a steep climb to the top with trails offering more close-up views of the falls. A small train connects the park entrance, the Sheraton Hotel and the Garganta do Diablo, or Devil's Throat walk. The catwalk begins at a quiet point upstream from the falls, passing a number of tranquil islands before reaching its final stunning destination. At the Garganta, the serene river suddenly turns violent as 13,000 cubic metres of water per second plunge 90 metres in 14 falls around a horseshoe-shaped canyon. Swifts drop like rocks through the drenching mist, catch insects mid-air, shoot back up and dart to perch on the cliffs behind the falls. .100 square kilometres of national parks surround the falls. 2,000 species of plants are found in the lush rainforest. There are beautiful butterflies and many kinds of birds. Although there are monkeys, deer, sloths, anteaters, jaguars, tapirs, caimans and armadillos in the park, they tend to be nocturnal, and all we saw were these raccoon-like coachis. One of the peaks in the Serra de Carioca range, Corcovado the Hunchback, towers 710 metres over the entire city, offering a breathtaking all-round panorama. The sheer rock face of Sugarloaf, Pau de Açúcar, rises 394 metres at the entrance of Guanabara Bay and offers stunning 360-degree views over Rio de Janeiro. It's reached by a two-stage cable car, stopping on the way 220 metres up the neighbouring Morro da Urca hill. Corcovado is surrounded by Tijuca National Park, 3,300 hectares of remnant Atlantic rainforest, considered to be one of the largest urban parks in the world. The 32-metre high statue of Christ the Redeemer is a symbol both of Rio de Janeiro and Brazil. The 1,145-tonne statue, unveiled in 1931, was cleaned and repaired in 2000 for the 500-year celebrations of Brazil's discovery by the Portuguese in 1500. Rio's affluent suburbs are interspersed with these favelas or slums. The long, scalloped beaches of Copacabana and Leme stretch 4.5 kilometres. This densely populated area has over 25,000 people per square kilometre crammed into a narrow strip of land. Copacabana remained a small fishing village until the construction of a tunnel in 1891 connected it with the rest of the city. Copacabana's wave-patterned black and white mosaic footpaths, similar to those outside the Manaus Opera House, are said to have been inspired by the meeting of the waters of the Amazon and Negro rivers. Ipanema acquired international fame in the early 60s as the home of the bossa nova character, the Girl from Ipanema.
I've been to cities that never closed down, from New York to Rio, an old London town. But no matter how far or how wide I roam, I still call Australia